Thank you, everyone, for coming in, spending the waning hours of a long day with me. How have you liked the conference so far? Good. It's great value, right? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about a topic called high velocity engineering. You might have heard of prompt engineering. You might have heard of context engineering. This one goes a little bit beyond that because it's specifically about building a system for using AI within your entire SDLC. So everyone knows about vibe coding or stuff like that. But we're going to take this to the next level where we apply engineering principles to AI coding. So to tell you about me, it's funny number. This year I hit 30 years as a professional software developer. Many years beyond that, I always joke with people that, if Agent K saw me on the street, I was walking around with a little DOS manual. That's back when they used to print manuals for software. At 8 years old, going to Sears and hacking into their computer, finding the games they installed. At 8, it's kind of funny and all the way up to here. I spent 6 years at Microsoft in their commercial software engineering team, where I was working with some of their biggest clients, bringing them to the cloud. And over the last 2 years, working with AI to integrate as well as exploring engineering practices with AI. My main focus was on cloud engineering, edge computing, so IoT, bringing data from disparate locations into the cloud. And I love domain-driven design. I fell in love at first sight. And pertinent to today's talk, I've focused on AI again. So what is high-velocity engineering? It's about reducing rework and maximizing your flow. When you prompt the AI and it goes off the rails and says, "Oh, yeah, I know what you mean." That was my first experience with vibe coding. I said, "Oh, you know what? I want to learn this, so I'm going to apply it to something that I understand or that I want to do, a pet project." And at the time I was like, okay, let me catalog my magic cards. And I said, okay, well, give me a list of secret layers. Let me add it to it. And while you're at it, add in the price for it. How much can I get if I decide to sell it? Yeah, that didn't work out that well. It's like, it guessed what the secret layer was for me and knew of the secret layer, but it said like, oh, there's these 1,000 cards with secret layer identities. Who knows magic? I'm sorry. A few of you. Okay. It's a 30-year-old game where basically all the cards are still in play. The older cards are very expensive. The newer cards are less so, unless you're playing with the Final Fantasy deck. But basically, I was telling it a very large scope task to do. And that's where I found out, like, oh, that's not how you do it. So I threw it out. That was my first lesson, is treat this as a sketch. Treat it as disposable. Don't fall in love with the code that the AI generates. It's disposable. It's free. It's like saying, oh, if I hit F5 on my compiler, I can't throw that away because it took so much time for me to build it. No, you rebuild it. You change the code and rebuild it. You change your prompt and rebuild it. When we talk about generational languages, you have assembly as the first generational, then C as the second, and they go up from there. I look at AI prompting as a 6GL. We're speaking natural language and we're getting working code from it. But you have to understand how to properly engineer those prompts in order to get what you want. So we need to treat it as part of our engineering system and take a mindset shift that maybe look at your AI agent as a junior developer. What does a junior developer have that's beneficial? They're eager, right? They're ready to go. They can pump out a lot of code. What they don't necessarily always have is context. You know, they don't know the whys or the higher level skills that helps them take a really large scope item and break it down. You're not going to tell them, oh, go out and build a clone of Twitter. You know, you might get the simple parts, but you won't have like high availability or duplication or other such things because they don't know that yet. Just like as of now, AI agents don't know. You can't say build a Twitter clone that actually scales to agents. So you have to give them the prompts, the context, and the guidelines to help them do so. As I said already, context, coding standards. You know, that's part of what you need to provide it. Like, how do I name a variable? You know, what does the shape of a class or what patterns should I use in developing this? Give them examples and templates. You know, if you have coding standards or an existing vertical slice, you know, sometimes during onboarding, good companies, good teams train their developers on, hey, here's how we do things. Go out and make a dummy example that works as we work. And that's what excuse me, throw this dry. That's what you want to do for your AI junior developers. So your co-pilot first year out of college, and then of course guardrails. You want to verify that their code actually works, that doesn't break existing code, and feedback loops. So you want to give them a review on the work they've done so that they can learn from it. And the same thing happens with Copilot. You need to give them onboarding docs. So this onboarding would be in the form of an instruction file. You give them coding guidelines. You give them examples from your existing code base, or because Copilot can also examine your code base so they have the full context and can understand it almost right away. And of course, feedback. So you're going to iterate on your prompts so that they can become better and get better results. And of course, the guardrails are still the same. You give your automated tests, your static analysis, and you know, that's where engineering comes in. You're designing a system to support your AI agent rather than just hope this works. So here's a simple example. You know, a junior developer might ask, do we use snake case or camel case? The correct answer is Pascal, of course. But you know, thank you, sir. Mark, the man of the minute, of the hour, of the day, hero, our all hero. So yeah. If you don't tell Copilot, you know, your coding output might be all over the place. And, you know, because at its core, your AI agent, your LLM, is a text generation engine. Now, it might have some things baked in that make it a little better at writing code. But if it saw an example where, you know, one algorithm was coded in a certain way and another one was coded with a different style, you're going to get a mixture of styles, unless you tell it. And so you can do that with your prompt instructions. And I'm going to give a few examples at the end. So yeah, so definitely, if that matters to you, which it should, give it to it. You know, have a coding standard document that it should follow in its context, and so that you don't have to write it over every time. Domain context is big. You know, if you're trying to build an app for buying fried chicken at your restaurant, and Copilot assumes that you're trying to build a chicken coop, it's going to have the wrong context. They won't mesh. So give it information about what you're building, not just assuming that, you know, because I say, oh, here's a customer, you know, it's like, okay, maybe they're buying eggs. No, we don't sell eggs. So again, like, you know, your junior developer might ask, what does the customer mean? And you know that knowledge, you know the knowledge, you need to provide it, not just to your junior developer, but also to your AI intern. So prompt engineering is important. You know, think of your instructions as code assets, because they are. They'll change over time. And, you know, as you get more familiar and investigate and explore more about what's possible with AI, you'll get better at prompting. And those prompts should improve and get closer and closer to what you need. When you see it go off the rails, think about how I could have made a better prompt, or how I could improve my prompt to make it do more like I want it to do. Refactoring is important. You know, as you review what the results are coming out, look at your prompts and see how you can improve them. Most important is specificity, because your AI, your LLM has a limited context. So think of it as like your memory stick on your computer. Once it overflows that context, you'll start seeing things like, summarizing conversation. So that summary is like a mark of doom, because it might miss important points. The way to keep that from happening is have an agent focus on a very specific thing. Have one agent call into another agent that does the other specific thing, or work on your chats for very intricate purposes. I have a chat that makes a plan for what needs to be done. So I say, hey, I want to build this function or this feature in my application. Make a plan for it. Say how you're going to do it. Because if you just say, go ahead and do this, it'll just make up its own plan and start rattling off and like, oh, wait, this doesn't work. I'm going to do this now. It's like, no, I like that. You just need to fix this one line here. But if you don't do that, if you just let it run at it without context matters always. It will, it's almost random. So we have a pattern that we call two-phase prompting. And that first phase is make the plan. And then you can cycle back through prompting or on your own and say, hey, for step one, we need to do X, Y, Z instead of ABC. And I'll show examples in a little bit. But definitely separate the context specify the context for the specific task, so that you're not overloading the LLM. There was a Yagni dry solid single responsibility principle, right? Treat that with your that's the principle that you take over from coding to your AI engineering. Finally, we're not at the point of if AI becomes more important to the job of a programmer. It's happening. It's already here. The train is rolling out the station. You saw during our keynote where the CTO said, "Yeah, we're exploring, and it's not just the big tech companies. It's filtering down, especially as people see more productivity boost from it." So how do you advance your career, protect your career? Because just coding isn't enough. Like he said, you need to start looking at the bigger business. I talked about this 3 years ago at Render. 3 years ago, where I talked about, yes, Justin's here. He gave me the opening talk, not the keynote, but the opening talk of Render, and I talked about being a product-driven developer, understanding the business that your software is supporting, and this is what you need to do now to become more bullet resistant. We can never say bulletproof. As AI becomes more embedded, our values as engineers shift. The skills that are important go beyond coding, go beyond even understanding the framework deeply, because I will be the first to admit I can prompt an LLM to create the same code or better than I do, with more edge cases, with more engineering capacity than I can in the same amount of time. I can tell you easily that something I can prompt in 2 hours would take me a week to do. So the actual coding isn't going to be as valuable going forward. But learning your domain, being able to talk at a business level of the value of your code, getting at a higher level with system design and architecture, being able to talk about systems and how they interoperate is important, because that's what you're going to be prompting the AI to do. And sorry. Oh no. Like to access? No, I don't want you to access my camera. And then, of course, prompt engineering is key, because that's what's going to drive your work. And the rest are just people skills, what they call soft skills. Soft skills are going to be more important going forward. So that's the end of the prepared talk. I'm going to show off some code now. And this is actually from, oh my Lord. Oh wait, I can see it over there. Okay, I'm going to go to mirror instead of extend now. Change to mirror. There we go. Okay. Then we'll fire this guy up, and I know it's tiny. But here is my Copilot instruction once I zoom out my. And so this is from this is from quite a bit of refactoring on this. But basically, it breaks down everything we have multiple instruction files, and then we tell it based on what task you're doing. Look at file A, B, C, or whatever. And so we have, again, when talking about specificity, we talk about epics. How do you break down epics? How you break down stories, feature development, project planning, issue management. So we use AI to create work items. We say, hey, I want to do this story, make a work item for it. And those work items go into such detail. Give up. Oh, might help if I was connected, huh? Come on, wake up. There we go. Nope. All right, well, trust me. They're very detailed work items. And so then I can go through my chat history. So, yeah, like the last time I was working on this, it was very, very high volume on high load on the system, so it failed a lot. But so here it is. I'm saying, since I've already told AI to make this work item for me, I say go ahead and assign it to me, move it to in progress, create a new branch, blah, 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 and create a plan according to the 2-phrase prompt instructions. Those prompt instructions are critical. It's saying, hey, don't just start trying to implement it. Make this plan. And we keep our plans in source control because it helps us track what's been happening, and then I can pick it back up from a different machine, or another coworker can pick it up. But here this plan is 250 lines long, and it goes through as it completes it. It marks it off as done, and before it proceeds, it says, hey, we've got to wait for the review and approval, and then it executes and breaks it down. And if we see, hey, this one step needs to be broken further down, we say, hey, let's make a new issue for this step, and then go through the whole process again. And again, this issue 62 was our first vertical feature we created, which used authentication, used Azure OpenAI. It had React Native hitting the Azure function backend, hitting the Cosmos DB, authenticated via Microsoft Interest. So it's a lot of working parts. And this guy did it in 2 hours. That would be a whole sprint normally. It's a simple vertical feature. I'm just creating one goal, but it's the first time we hit the entire vertical slice. And so by doing the upfront work in creating our prompts and giving it context that it can rely on, we were able to hit that in 2 hours. And the next one should be quicker because we won't be dealing with the problems we did. Like, I think there was our local development environment wasn't authenticated to the back end, so we had to do a workaround. But we won't hit that problem because we solved it. So the next one will be probably an hour. But if you want to follow along, we're pre-launching. Hey, there we go. Come on, you just loaded. Okay, we're pre-launching GoGlowUp.com, and what this product is is a productivity coach driven by AI. So sign up to find out more. We're going to catch up with you and get in early. You know, New Year's coming around. Stop making resolutions, or make your final resolution to glow up your goals. And with that, thank you for spending your time with me.